And we are live. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to this week our weekly live, our lunch with Tetsu and Joey.
And we have a regular at our lunches, Nicolas, that's with us today. And we are waiting to see if we will have Kai Chan, one of the speakers at our event, who was scheduled to meet with us today. Hopefully, he's going to be able to come in. But either way, it's noon and it's Friday, so we are live.
Yes, so wonder what's keeping them, but we'll start our weekly live today, right now, and we have Joey in Montreal, myself in Taiwan, and Nicolas, where are you? Tell us, where are you?
Yeah, so I'm adding a third continent to the list because I'm in Lisbon right now in Portugal.
Wow.
To attend the World Esperanto Congress, which will take place from tomorrow here in Lisbon for about a week. So yeah, I'm going to spend a week in Portugal, and now I saw a little bit of the city yesterday, which is not too much because I was very tired from the flight, but it's going to be a nice and tiring week, like I like.
Okay.
Your first time in Portugal?
It's my first time in Portugal.
So I guess you're going to practice my Portuguese
as well. Yes.
Okay, I see that Kai has joined us.
Because muscles, Kai.
I just came back. I just came back from the Dalsan. So for those in Montreal, there's a Muay Thai club on Saint Laurent and Mont Royal. I just finished.
Oh, you're in Montreal right now, huh?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Well, glad to have you with us.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Glad you can.
So, Kai, thank you very much for joining us. We're very happy to have you with us. We're happy that you're going to be speaking at Langfest this year. You seem to have done quite a lot of things in the field of linguistics, but also in other things. I mean, you are really I guess, economist. Is that it?
Yeah. I'm by training an economist, but if you may have seen my CV, I've kind of worked all over the place, private sector, government, finance. And I've been doing stuff on languages because I'm a language nerd. I like languages. And actually, the funny thing is, this when I created the Power Language Index, it was about 2 years ago. But I'm still getting invites to do talks on this. I just recently came back from France, and they invited me because they wanted to do a State of the French Language symposium for La Francophonie. So they invited me for that. And I'm actually going in September to the University of Aruba to give a similar, it's a country, which is the primary language is Papiamento. So the majority, about 80-90% speak it. But the official and the only official language is Dutch. And plus they have the Spanish and the English influence as well. So they were kind of curious to see if I did a power language index of that island nation, how it would show the strength of Papiamento relative to, to Dutch, to English, etc. So
very interesting.
Yeah.
So the first year we did Langfest in Montreal 2 years ago, we had somebody that did a workshop on Papiamento. So
interesting.
That's something that we were familiar with.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I didn't realize that the official language was Dutch and that Papiamento as such was not really recognized as a language.
Yeah, it doesn't have status, but it's the majority language. So then, and that's actually why creating the Power Language Index, the thing that I did was so interesting, because you have places like Pakistan where I think Punjabi is spoken by more than half the population as their mother tongue, but the official language, or is it, hold on, the official language is Urdu, even though it's only spoken by 10%.
Wow.
That's where the ruling class, the ruling family comes from. So you have all these really, interesting things dealing with linguistics. So it's very much, it's also very political as well, which is why I find it very interesting. There's a cross section of the linguistics side and the politics that comes along with, language policies.
Yeah, I guess you're going to get more. Your presentation this year is going to be on the Power Language Index, or
I'll do an assessment of what it is, how I created it, and what the general results are. if you guys have any ideas for me on how to elaborate it more, to be more appropriate for the event, please let me know.
As such, I find it fascinating. Is it a formula that you apply or something like that?
Yes. Basically, I take 20 indicators. And the real challenge is when you take those 20 indicators, most indicators, when you get data, from the World Bank or whomever, IMF, it's all attached to nation states, right? So, for example, if I wanted to do GDP or I don't know, any of the indicators I have in there, right? I mean, if I were to look at, right, well, how do I divide the GDP of Switzerland according to the languages, right? You got German, which is about 60%, French is about 30%, and, Italian about 15%. You have Romansh, which has official status, but only 40,000 speakers. So the real challenge in that was to think of an intelligent and consistent way to map all these indicators, which are typically done on the nation state level, to languages. And then some of the other challenges that happened is that you also have this challenge about, okay, well, a language may have official status, but is meaningless in the country. So, I found that there are many places that have English as an official language, but no one really speaks it. And they just choose English as an official language because they want to be international, right? And then you have to deal with the other situations about, well, difference between a native speaker and an L2 speaker, right? So how do you count how many speakers? And if the country, a lot of the African countries, West Africa, they speak French, or sort of West Africa, or things West Africa. They speak French, but as a second language, right? So they actually speak like a dialect of their native tongue at home, whatever that may be, one of the tribal languages, but they all end up speaking French at a fairly good level, but most people would call that L2 level, right? So then how do you account for that? And then how do you account for the fact that if I know Chinese, I can go to Japan and I can read, the kanji, right? Or if I know Italian, I can easily go to Portugal and Spain and get by, even if I, never had studied Portuguese or Spanish, right? So I had to try to take a formula for these 20 indicators, find ways to map them to languages rather than nation states, and then find ways to correct for all these little, oddities, so to best assess, like I said, the breach of languages.
So
did you do data gathering yourself? Because that must be a lot.
Yes, I did that by myself. It was a long exercise. It was a big spreadsheet because I did it for about 123 languages. So basically, I found every language that had more than 5 million native speakers, and then I also went to Google Translate. I said, okay, every language that is on Google Translate and every language for which there's more than 5 million native speakers, I'm going to try to get all the data, all the 20 indicators of that language. And then I, did the computation, big spreadsheet, lots of data gathering, a lot of data cleaning, and came up with that index.
Wow.
So it's a list of 10 languages, correct?
Well, it's a list of 123 languages, but I just give like the top 10 or
okay.
the top, because people care about top 10, so I just list the top 10 in my summary.
So of the top 10, is there one or two or three that were very surprising to be
well, high? I think a lot of people found French to be a bit of a surprise, and because French came so high, I actually got a lot of media attention because the French, they're very proud of their language and they're really trying to hold on to it. So I got media inquiries, from France and from Quebec about why French did so well, because for them that's very good news. And I think it came as a bit of a surprise because I think a lot of the French, feel that English is being dominant, which it is. And if you look at the index, one of the really cool things about the index is that it doesn't just tell you the ranking, but it tells you because the index is cardinal, right? Because English comes with a score of 0.9 approximately, and French is like 0.3. We can literally say that it is 3 times more effective and more efficient than French, because all the indicators are things like percentage of the internet in the language, right? Mm-hmm. Percentage of the world's population that speaks that language. So all these numbers, because they're cardinal, I can literally not just tell you that English is more important, but English is like 3 times more important, to an alien that were to land on Earth if they wanted to interact with humans. So I think French was a big surprise because it's only got about 80 or 90 million native speakers, right? But they also count a lot in the L2 speakers from Africa, and they also benefit a lot from the fact that it's geographically diverse, so you can find it pretty much spoken in most continents of the world, everywhere. And it's also, the other thing that does it very well. It's got a lot of L2 speakers. It's also very important because when you look at a lot of the international organizations, right? I mean, they're either based in Paris, Geneva, Montreal, Brussels, right? So these are all places, where French is an official language or dominant, right? So French, and because French used to be also lingua franca until probably the 20th century, it still retains a lot of influence and prestige in spite of the fact that it has a very small number of native speakers. So that was the one, and I think the other thing that I thought was very interesting was that when I got the top 6 languages, the top 6 languages also happened to be the official languages of the UN. So that was sort of kind of confirmed that the UN is sort of balanced in having chosen those 6 languages as their official ones.
That's very interesting. Did anybody sponsor your research, or you just did this on your own?
I just did this on my own because I'm affiliated with INSEAD. I'm a distinguished fellow there. And in my old job in Dubai, I used to do a lot of these indices. So I used to help the government track a lot of these indices. So I was very versed in them. So I know all the mechanics that go behind it, etc. So I thought it'd be a fun project to do. But I actually reached out to La Francophonie after my meeting with them about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I told them, look, if you want, I can maybe do an update and, with their maybe, support to do an update. Because it'll be 3 years old soon because I published it about in 2016. So, and I think, in the last 2 and almost 3 years, I've also gotten a lot of good feedback about, how to improve it. And the truth is the data gets old as well, right? So after 3 years, by then, some of the data has changed a bit. With Brexit, maybe the influence of English has fallen a little bit, and, Russia is trying to reinstate some of its influence, and etc. Kazakhstan's going through some interesting things because they're trying to move away from the Cyrillic alphabet, towards the Latin alphabet. But it'd be a fun thing to do, like an update at some point.
Sorry, you said who's trying to move away from the Cyrillic alphabet?
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan?
So right now, there's, former Soviet country. The elite still speak Russian. And, I went there about 2 or 3 years ago for a conference. And yeah, like I said, all the elites still speak Russian, even though they're trying to promote the Kazakh language. So at the same time, they're also trying to, quote unquote, modernize and become international. So they're trying to really push English to become more international. But they're also in a unique situation, right? They're sandwiched between China and Russia, right? So, and of course, the American influence and the Anglo influence is very strong worldwide. So they've got 3 major languages that are right at their doorsteps, that are really trying to, I guess, influence that region.
It's interesting. It's interesting. So I guess it's also a sign of rebellion against the ex-boss.
Yeah, a little bit of that, yeah.
So I took a read. I read your biography and your information on your website, and I just found it absolutely fascinating. I don't know. I mean, with your beginnings being born in China, and then throughout your time in Toronto and whatnot. What brings you to languages? And I think there's a list of 6 or 7 that you do.
Yeah.
What makes you become a
I can actually say I speak 5. I can actually confidently say I speak 5, and I can actually converse and get by in daily life in 5 languages.
Okay.
Russian would be my 6th. I don't feel confident enough yet that I would actually say I could go to Russia and get by. I mean, I could understand and read signs, but I would not be able to really get by. So my native is English and Cantonese because I was born in southern China. And then I only picked up a lot of the languages when I got much older. I didn't learn French to a point where I feel confident enough that I would almost consider myself fluent, I guess. I mean, I still make a lot of mistakes, but I can get myself understood, no problem. I only got fluent in that maybe in my late 30s, early 40s. German I picked up probably in my 40s. Mandarin I picked up in my 20s. And like I said, yeah, that's my 5 languages. But I mean, I've always been, when I was young, I always, liked the idea of traveling, and I was always very curious about that. But, I was immigrant family, so I didn't have the money, so I never really traveled or did anything like that. And the funny thing was I nearly lost my Cantonese growing up because I grew up in Toronto and, immigrant parents. I didn't spend a lot of time with them. And, just being a typical Canadian, you just want to, kind of mold into the society. So I kind of lost most of my Cantonese. But by the time I was a teenager, I kind of like, rediscovered my Cantonese roots, and I, kind of reacquired that now. I'm pretty much, basically fluent in that again. Thank goodness.
Oh, goodness.
And then I think other languages I picked up because I actually ended up having a very international lifestyle. So moved around a lot, and had an opportunity to really use it, and I think it's just useful. It's one of the it's a good thing, to keep your brain sharp. It opens up so many doors for you.
Well, you definitely need to. You need to have an interest. I mean, how many people we know who lead an international lifestyle, but they still only just speak English?
Yes, it's very true, very true. I know so many expats who've lived in whatever, like Tokyo, Hong Kong, Bangkok, Rome, whatever. They all still only speak English.
That's right.
So yeah, it is a big effort, and the truth is, as I've learned, through my own research, is you don't do it to make an extra buck or you can and make maybe a little extra dollars, but usually the amount of effort that you have to put into it doesn't translate usually into a whole lot of extra money unless you're like a diplomat or something of that nature, or an interpreter, where it is like that essential, right? Just for the average Joe like me, who has,
definitely no average Joe.
picking up these languages has not been something that I needed for my jobs, or it hasn't made me any richer financially, but I feel a lot richer in terms of my life experiences. So one of the really cool things is I love to travel, and almost anywhere I travel nowadays, I can, understand or communicate with the locals, or at least a subset of the locals, right? So Chinese has been very useful in terms of like wherever I travel, there's always a Chinatown. So that's been very useful. German's been very useful because, I lived in Germany, and Germans are prolific travelers. They're everywhere, So that's been very useful for me since I go to that region all the time. I have a host family over there. And Russian has opened up a lot of doors because now I can also read the Cyrillic alphabet. So even if I can't understand the words, I can actually read Mongolian and, and Ukrainian and all that kind of stuff. French, like I said, is very widespread. English, obviously, is super widespread. French has also opened the doors because I can understand Spanish. Even if I can't speak, I can understand a bit of it because my French is okay. So it's been really very enriching, for myself to have picked these languages. Even if it hasn't been financially rewarding, it definitely has made my life more interesting. I said that the really funny thing is my wife is Polish, and I don't speak Polish, and my parents, my in-laws, do not speak English, and so the funny thing is when I communicate with them, we both use broken Russian.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's quite interesting. I understand this.
Have you felt inclined to try to learn a little bit?
If we have kids, and we don't have kids right now, I definitely will learn Polish, because I think it's something that if we had kids, I definitely would want them to learn to know Polish because that's their mother's tongue, and I would expect them to speak Cantonese because that's my native tongue. And I've always told my wife, I was like, I'm going to learn Polish because I never want the two of you talking behind my back.
So one of the questions I had is that, the Power Language Index, there's like a picture of where we are now. But how do you see, you said you were going to do maybe an update or something. What do you expect in terms of lines moving in say, future editions?
Yeah. Well, I actually wrote a piece, or in the piece that I wrote for the World Economic Forum, I actually did an assessment of the Power Language Index in 2050, in about 50 years, because a couple of things that we can predict pretty well is population growth rates and GDP growth rates. So those are very well known. Now, so I plugged those numbers in to the Power Language Index, which is a big factor in the Power Language Index, and we see by 2050, if we only look at population changes and GDP changes and the things that they impact directly, Spanish will overtake French, right, as the number 3 spot. Mandarin improves a little bit, but English still remains very dominant. Now, some of the other indicators in there are a little harder to model because, it's hard to model how many, which of the world's top universities, use English. Maybe in 2050 there'll be more, top schools in China that will be using Chinese. Now, actually, that's another interesting topic as well, because even though you have a lot of these top universities in China or in Spain or in Germany, a lot of them use English. Um, because that's how you become a top university nowadays. So even then, it's kind of hard to do that assessment. But like I said, I did do an assessment for the year 2050, just based on GDP growth and population growth. I would also love to be able to work with some people, and I have a colleague in Concordia, and we actually trying to do some computer simulations about how some of the other indicators may change, and also on a game theoretic perspective, right? If we assume that people can learn one or two languages, and which ones will they learn, and what migration patterns you expect, and how that will change.
That's the thing, right? I mean, if you have one lingua franca that's dominant, I mean, what can you expect in terms of incentives for people to learn other languages? And in turn, once you do that, if the incentive drops, then do you have a drop in status?
Yeah, so that's very interesting. So definitely, I mean, like, languages are like social networks, right? Everyone's on Facebook now because it's easier if everyone's on the same network, right? And at one point there was like Friendster, there are all these other things, but it's the same. It's the same thing, with languages. There are externalities, right? You want to learn a language because you want to communicate with people, and everyone else is learning English. Now, having said that, we have these little things like Brexit. We have little things like America being much more isolationist. So this is an opportunity for other languages, especially if they have like the Alliance Française, or they have these things to back it up, to kind of push it a little bit.
There's another issue, I guess, in terms of that network, because even if you learn a language, you're part of the network, but if it's not your native language, you're actually not part of the network in the same way that native speakers are. So there's still an advantage. You're still in a sort of a secondary network. So in that sense, what you should do, I mean, one of the things that I'm very interested in language policy and that kind of thing as well, and that's why I was excited actually when I saw that you wanted to give a talk at Langfest, because I think the topics are interesting. I always think, okay, the other strategy is saying if you already speak relatively large language, that you want to boost the status of that language, so that it remains a network of note, and one that people have an incentive to join, rather than say, oh, let's all switch and go to another bigger network. You want to keep your network working as well and attracting new members. So how does that work in your model?
The other thing that's really interesting is, I'm looking at Korean, for example, right? Because Korea's kind of like become the new cool, right? They got Samsung, they got K-pop, they got these K-dramas. And I've been reading about like how families in Tunisia, they broadcast K-dramas now, right? And there are a lot of families who are actually learning Korean because of that, right? And there are a lot of young kids who are learning Korean because they like K-pop and stuff like that. And so, it's quite interesting how you can have these kind of things where, and I think the government's actually working to promote it as well. So that kind of helps them promote their language, promote their culture, and promote their trade as well. And I think that's like a way that Korea, like like 40 million in South Korea. If you add North, if they ever kind of rejoin, that's like maybe 60 million. So it's a very it's not a big language base, but sometimes you can punch above your weight in terms of your native speakers if you've got like some cool policy behind you, right? Or cool societies, cool cultural aspects behind you. So.
And what do you think of? What was I going to say? Moving. Oh yes. Does the Power Language Index also take into account, say, the flows of wealth that go into learning a language? So if you're a language that's very widespread, a lot of people are going to learn it. You're going to obviously lower your cost in terms of other languages and put that cost on other people. You're going to have a bigger market for your books, your movies. You're going to sell language learning trips and that kind of thing. Is that something that you've taken into account? Because it's pretty significant for some of countries speaking some of the largest languages, and first and foremost English, but it's true of other large languages as well.
the Power Language Index was based on if an alien came on the Earth, which languages would serve it best. Because obviously, if you already have French as your native language, right, it's easy to learn, the other Romance languages, right. If you have Chinese as a base, learning Japanese isn't so hard, right. So that's why, like I said, I try to take a very neutral perspective, right. So to each person has their own incentives, but obviously the index does tell you which ones are most influential. So obviously if you were to pick up a language, right, if your native is like say Chinese, right, obviously you can see English is very powerful to learn, right. I mean, if you're French, well, you may want to pick up the most powerful language that's not already in your language group, kind of thing. So that kind of gives you the most ability to communicate with the most of the world. So there you can kind of look at it on that aspect. But I think there are definitely a lot of policy implications that can come out of the languages. I mean, one of the things that, as I used to work in Dubai, and we're hosting the expo, or they're hosting, I don't no longer live there. They're hosting the expo in 2020. So I actually did some work with them, and I kind of told them, look, if you guys want to know which languages are really useful to holding a global event, here's the Power Language Index. Kind of gives you a feel about which languages, probably will serve you good, right? Because those are the languages that are most likely, to be needed at a global event like that.
And if you do, like you were saying at the beginning, a version that's localized for a place, you said you were maybe going towards for the case of Aruba. So is that going to be different in terms that, I mean, because of the fact that you're going to be taking the point of view of the local people, the local user, instead of being
an alien. Yeah, exactly. So this will be very different. This will be very different. This will be what is the most relevant language for Aruba, right? So obviously Aruba is going to be like 80%, Papiamento as a native, but all the power structures, like government and newspapers and whatnot, the courts are done in Dutch, right? So, and then obviously you're going to have the fact that the tourist inflows, most of them probably want to be served in Spanish or English. So it's going to be very interesting. I haven't done it yet, but I'll be kind of punching those numbers soon because my presentation is mid-September.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I better get cracking on that.
Yeah, very interesting. So, Kai, we're very looking forward to hearing more about this and seeing you at LangFest. It's going to take place from the 21st to the 26th. If you have a chance, you can partake in the pre-conference activities, which are going to be you're local, so you can help play tour guide with the people that are going to come from outside.
Sure.
Bring them to the mountain. We're going to bring them to all kinds of little places. On the Tuesday, we're starting with a kickoff. Tuesday the 21st, we're kicking it off at the Mundolingo at the Petite Grenouille on Saint Laurent.
Okay.
With our friends from Mundolingo, and then Wednesday and Thursday there will be some activities that are planned to take in to see different sites across the city. The official conference starts on the Friday. It's going to be at Concordia, which you know obviously since you're from Montreal, and it's going to take place for 3 days. We have, I guess, over 20 speakers, many languages.
Well over.
A lot of stuff is happening. It's going to be really full packed. Have you ever been to this kind of event before, Kai?
No, actually, I have not. So I'm actually very much looking forward. This will be my first like a language event like this. Yes.
Yeah, rubbing elbows with language geeks.
That's right.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna feel really inadequate. I mean, when I saw I think past editions, people who speak like 20 languages, I'm like, oh my goodness.
It's really fair. That's what we emphasize. It's really for everyone that's interested in languages, not just the hyper polyglot. And I think you're going to find a lot of that. And I think we have this year, especially, such a wide range of topics. Yours, for instance, going into language policy, that kind of thing. I think we've really broadened the number of people individual interests that we cater to.
Absolutely. And you talked about, crunching numbers and whatnot. I'm sure you'll find folks there who will be experts at doing that kind of stuff, like Zach Burkett. We've got, folks talking about, the mathematics behind modeling languages and whatnot. So definitely it's a place where you'll find some like-minded individuals and talk about languages over a beer.
Mm-hmm.
That's
As a speaker, we have a promo code if you want to tell your friends and people in your that follow you, I guess, to come to LangFest. They get 15% off if they use your your name. I guess it's going to be Kai.
First name.
I assume.
Yep,
Tetsu,
that's
that
right. That's right.
Yeah.
Folks,
already active, right?
Yes,
so
it is.
If they want to see you speak and take in the conference, all they got to do is go to langfest.org, use the promo code Kai, and any other applicable discount depending on their age or their students, seniors. They got other things that can be applicable. Either way, it's going to be fun. I hope. For you, you're our guest, so we want you to be able to partake and enjoy it as much as possible. I don't know if you are considering staying for the full 3 days. I hope that you do.
Well, I'm around. I'm in the city, so I really have no excuse.
Yeah.
That's right.
There's a gala dinner on the Saturday. We have a picnic on the Sunday. We might have a karaoke event. It's going to be fun.
Sing karaoke in a language other than your native language, right?
Yeah. So look forward to seeing you. It'll be a very short, I think in 23, 24 days, something like that.
That's right. Yes, very soon.
It is very soon.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we have a couple of minutes left. Any final words from anyone, or that's it? So
I have my presentation. I think I haven't mailed it yet, so I have to send it to the organizer, right? I'll do that this week. It's already there. I've got to change a couple of things, and I have it in French as well. I told him, so I can actually do the presentation in French if somebody would like that. Yeah, so that's all I have from my end.
It might be. What did we have his presentation as, in English or?
We have it in English, but if you can do certain explanations in French, that's also fine. If you could field some questions in French, that's also that would be also appreciated. But we
try to give it a French flavor since it's in Montreal. So anybody that does speak French, we encourage them to at least, like you said, present in French or answer questions in French or do it bilingual. Gives a little bit of the flavor of our wonderful city.
Yes, it definitely does.
All right.
Okay, so we are looking forward to seeing you. Enjoy the rest of the summer.
And, likewise, and looking forward to meeting you in person soon.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. All right, guys.
Bye.
All right.
Cheers.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.